Welcome to my 224th video on my work with OO gauge. In this video I'll be dealing with my attempts to see what I could do with some of the items that I picked up at the recent Father's Day train show in Ancaster, Ontario, Canada, close to where I live. Specifically, I will mainly be dealing with an MRC Sound Power 7000, a US-made DC controller that includes integrated sound features, and with a rather strange Duchess of Atholl locomotive with a Hornby Dublo body and some sort of strange chassis. Here's an overview of the items that I picked up at the Ancaster show. See my prior video, part 222, for info on everything that I got at that show. This time, as I said, I'll mainly be dealing with the controller and the loco. But while I was at it, I did also see about placing these two card buildings that I got somewhere on my Dublo railway. It was rather a case of shoehorning the newly acquired buildings in, as I didn't really have obvious spots for them. Here you can see where I've put one building, which looks like some kind of small factory, behind the station. And I put the other building, a sort of inn or hotel, the Bear Inn I think it is, over on the turntable extension. I'm not too sure about these placements, but for now at least these buildings are sitting as seen, and I do quite like to see them there. Much of my effort was devoted to mucking around with this controller with built-in sound to see what I could do with it. I'm not too sure about the claim here of realistic sound, but you'll be able to see and hear some running later in this video and you can judge for yourself. This is the actual control unit. It has all of the features that you might expect on an advanced DC controller, momentum and brake, plus nudge, whatever that is supposed to do, plus sound features. There's a switch for steam or diesel type sounds, which is hidden by the price sticker in this picture. I actually paid $65 for this after a bit of haggling. It came with a speaker, but definitely not a very good one. On the back, the speaker is identified as 8 ohms and 1 watt. On the back of the unit are connections for the track, for the speaker, and for AC accessories. I didn't use the AC accessory connection, but I connected the controller to my Dublo track and to the speaker that came with it. To connect the new controller to the track, I soldered crocodile clips to the ends of 2 wires and clipped them to the terminals on my Dublo power feed track. I did this rather than trying to screw the new wires into the terminals because this power feed track has weird little nuts on its terminals and they're horribly fiddly and difficult to work with. When I initially connected the MRC controller, it wasn't happy as my Gauge Master controller was still connected and so shorting some of the power. I eliminated this problem by setting the direction switch of the Gauge Master controller in the middle position, as seen here. With the switch in this position, the Gauge Master controller is neither in forward nor reverse mode and is in fact not actually connected to the track at all. With those steps done, the MRC controller operated locos on the Dublo tracks fine, but even with the volume turned up to full, the sound from the MRC unit wasn't loud at all, and indeed could barely be heard when a loco was rumbling round the track. In an attempt to improve this situation, I made a crude cabinet for the speaker from an old plastic potato salad box. I also noticed that the cone of the speaker was broken round the edges, and I did my best to fix it with tape. Not very pretty, but this was the best that I could do with that speaker, and I didn't have any other obviously suitable speaker on hand. You'll be able to hear the results for yourself shortly. I haven't tried to do anything with the coaches and wagons from the Ancaster show yet, but I did try to see what was what with the loco model seen at top here. The body was obviously from a Dublo Duchess of Atholl, but it was fitted to some sort of oddball-looking 2-rail chassis, and it came to me with no guarantee at all as to running. Here you can see the new loco model on the bench. Problems can already be spotted here. There appears to be a crack in the body, and the rear pony truck appears to be fitted wrongly. There's also a wire between the tender and loco that wouldn't have been there on a normal Dublo Duchess of Atholl. Here's the bottom of the model. You can see that it has no centre rail pickup and so must have been intended for two-rail operation. Here's a close-up of the pony truck as it came. As you can see, as fitted, there would be no way for the wheels to reach the track at all. The connection between the loco and tender was done quite differently to the original Dublo method, and both ends of the drawbar were screwed in place. I tried unscrewing the connection of the pony truck and putting it on the other way up. It didn't seem to want to fit and pivot like this at first. I managed a somewhat better arrangement by flipping round the piece through which the fitting screw went. This at least positioned the wheels so that they might get onto the track, though I was still a bit dubious about proper pivoting. I tried applying power to the model from my bench controller. I couldn't get any response from it at all, no matter how I tried applying power. I checked the bench controller with a different model just to make sure that the controller was supplying power properly, and it was. I disconnected the tender. The wire coming out of the front of the tender was broken off at the loco end. When I removed the screw going through the chassis at the back, I was able to remove the chassis from the body. Not what would be normal for a Dublo Duchess. Normally the chassis hooks into the body at the back via slots in the chassis and is held on by a single screw at the front. The body of this model was quite badly cracked, as you can see here. It's perhaps suffering from Mazak rot, although it seems fairly solid and not inclined to fall apart further at the moment. I did wonder if the crack might have been caused by attempts to force the body to fit onto a different chassis. Here's the chassis without the body and the pony truck. Presumably the wire from the tender would originally have been connected at the left. At right is a socket with a bulb. I'm not quite sure what for, as I don't see how the light would ever be seen with the body on. Here's a close-up of the motor and the wiring. I connected my bench controller directly to the brushes of the motor. This caused the bulb to light up, but produced absolutely no response whatever from the motor itself. It appeared that the model had been set up with the idea of the tender picking up from one rail and the loco from the other, but it didn't work at all. The motor appeared stone dead. I checked the magnet and it appeared to have plenty of power, but the armature showed absolutely no signs of moving, humming, or whatever. The tender that came with the new model is at left here, and another three-rail Duchess tender that I had going spare on the right. I've swapped the direction of the screw on the new tender so that it points down now, with the idea of using it to connect to the drawbar of a Dublo chassis, as with the pin on the regular Dublo tender. When I tried to hook the new tender up to a Dublo chassis to run it on my Dublo tracks, I discovered another issue. It was simply impossible to get the new tender to rail on the Dublo track. After trying futilely for a while, I realized that the reason was that the wheels were gauged wrongly. The wheels were much too widely spaced to fit onto Dublo track at all, so presumably this model must have been set up for EM gauge, with OO scale body parts but wider track to be properly in scale. Given that, even if I'd been able to get the motor to run, I wouldn't have been able to run the model, as I don't have any EM gauge track. You can see the bottom of the new tender here. Two of the wheels appear to be original Dublo ones, with the others being replacements. The chassis part holding the axles is attached with nuts rather than rivets, as it would have been originally. I rather wanted to use the body from the new tender, as it was in better condition than the body on my spare tender, which had an obvious dent amongst other issues. Here I've separated the body of my spare tender from the chassis by bending out 6 tabs, 2 on either side and 2 at the front. The piece of metal on top of the chassis is attached by 2 bent tabs and is there just to support the plastic part representing the coal in the tender. I separated the body and chassis of the new tender the same way and then put the new body onto the old chassis by reinserting and bending flat the 6 tabs. So now I had a tender with the new body, but my old chassis and wheels, which would work on Dublo track. With that done, I was able to rail up the tender, and I'd fitted the new body onto a spare Dublo Duchess chassis that I had. Combined like this, I was able to run the body parts from the Ancaster show, albeit on chassis parts that I had before. It's certainly a pity about the crack in the body. I'm still honestly rather in two minds as to whether it's even worth continuing to work with this model. But it does run, and it doesn't look all that bad. If it doesn't appear that it's going to fall apart with Mazak rot, I'll perhaps buy another set of plates from Fox Transfers and rename this model, as I already have a Duchess of Atholl on the railway. In fact, I also already have a Duchess of Buccleuch and a Duchess of Montrose, so that's 3 out of the 5 Duchesses that went into service without streamlining in 1938, the first ones to go into service without streamlining. If this one gets renamed, it will become one of the remaining 2 non-streamlined Coronation-class locos from 1938, either the Duchess of Sutherland or the Duchess of Abercorn. Anyway, now let's see a little video of this model running with the MRC Sound and Power used to control it, so you can see and hear that in action.
Okay, so let me see if I can do a little video demonstrating what I've done with these things. There you go, on the tracks there is the Duchess I've built out of these bits. That is, it's the new body, loco body and tender body, but mounted on an old loco chassis and an old tender chassis that I had. I see that now my other camera's turned itself off. I don't know, has it actually turned itself off? Yes, I think it has. See, I wanted to use this camera, famous last words, if I can even get it to turn back on, to film, to video the sound and power. So let me see if I can do that. Famous last words. God, it's hard work. There we go. No, I think that just started and then stopped again. Famous last words. Yeah, I think that's recording now. It says record. I'm not very used to using this for video. So hopefully you're getting a view now from that will show you the sound and power which we've got down here. I've connected it via crocodile clips there to my power, and I've turned my gauge master power that I was using before into neutral, so it's neither forward nor backward, so it's not connected at all, basically. And I've got the sound and power speaker sitting, which is kind of a bit messed up, but I've put it in a cabinet as best as I can. I've got it there, and hopefully you'll be able to hear the sound from it a bit. Let me just, if I just do the... That sounds moderately loud, but when you're actually running the thing, it doesn't sound that loud, because part of the problem is that, you know, the train running on this track makes a fair bit of noise anyway. Anyway, let's give it a try. There you go, and you can hear might be not quite enough power really, but still. This is still the Duchess of Atholl, but I've already got a Duchess of Atholl, so if it's going to keep its place on the railway, it will probably get renamed to one of the others. The Duchess of Sutherland and the Duchess of Abercorn are the 2 non-streamlined Duchesses built in 1938 that I haven't got. I've already got a Duchess of Atholl, a Duchess of Buccleuch and a Duchess of Montrose. Zoom out a little bit, and see the speed knob see how it's going, making the noise faster now, but that seems too fast. You just sort of kind of adjust that a bit slow now, maybe. Now it will go speed. It does increase. When you increase the speed of the locomotive, it increases, and it slows down when you slow down. And the brake, oops, I'm trying to apply the brake without moving it. See, the brake will basically bring the locomotive to a halt. And if we put momentum on, then what happens is, see how I turn the power off, but the locomotive continues a very long way. Actually, the locomotive seems to continue almost indefinitely if you put momentum on. Does it ever actually stop? Just about. Not wild about momentum, really. Let's see if it'll... Yeah, it will start again. I don't even know what nudge does. We can try putting it on, but I don't know what it does. I haven't been able to figure out what nudge does. Let's just see if we can... Oh, I'm just going to stop it conventionally, I think, without using the brake. Now, if I put nudge mode on, what does it do? Well, one thing it seems to do is not. Well, I think basically what it's doing is considerably reducing the power. So I have to turn the power up quite a lot to get it to move at all. I don't know. Okay, well, so I don't know what else to say. This is all with volume up to full, but then that's kind of a crappy speaker. A bit fast, isn't it? And of course we can at any time I can't honestly say that I think I'm going to use this regularly, but it's interesting to see what it does. And we try brake again. See, I can basically bring the thing, I can bring the thing to a complete halt by putting the brake on. The problem is, then I have to turn the throttle down, or else when I release the brake it'll start again. Well, honestly, you know, I think that's about all I can do in terms of demonstrating this. The Locomotive seems to go with, actually, see, mind you, it probably won't go quite as well as this with the Gauge Master controller, because this thing, even in its low power, I've got it in its low power mode now for HO and N layouts, as they say, but even in that mode, it supplies more power than the Gauge Master. So this loco won't, you know, go so fast with the same percentage with the Gauge Master. But anyway, there you go. For what it's worth, there's the MRC Sound Power 7000 and another Duchess, which will probably get itself renamed and renumbered.